Hey everyone, let me know if you can hear me. All right. Good to see you, Stevie and Jeff, John and Kevin and Tracy. All right. Said all of that in one breath. That was pretty good. Good to see you, Susan. We have 2 minutes and 45 seconds. We're going to be kicking this thing off. So, yay. It's going to be fun and exciting this week, as it is every week. Meanwhile, I'll let Bruce grab your drinks, pull up a chair, make yourself comfortable, and we will be kicking off in 2 minutes and 22 seconds. Fix My Photo link is fixmyphoto.net. Or here's a direct link. Thanks, Imaging. 1 minute, 25 seconds to go. You guys feeling nervous yet? At least feeling nervous for me. Try that link, Dave. 1 minute. Looks like Kathy got it figured out. "42 seconds. The anticipation builds. "20 seconds, guys." All right, I got Bruce's chat ready. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's blast off. And hello, everybody. Live from lockdown, episode number. Looks like my camera is kind of low. Let me pull my camera up. Don't you love these like high-powered introductions? They say in all the training, make sure you start with a bang. All right, well, we keep it real here. I think that's more exciting. All right, so welcome to Live from Lockdown, episode number 58. Can you guys, I'm going to say it again. I always say that. Can you believe it? I think after about week 10, I couldn't believe we were still going. I didn't think we had a year's worth of live streams in us, but it looks like we do, and many more to come. So thanks, guys, for joining us. Some of you are brand new. Welcome. Good to see your new faces here. Introduce yourself in the chat there, because we have the friendliest people on the internet, so you will be warmly welcomed. With gifts in hand and everything. If you're a regular, thank you for joining us every week. Some of you might have missed one or two. Some of you haven't missed any, which is just absolutely amazing. So good to see the regulars here. Good to see, people that just kind of drop in from time to time. And the replay crew. I know some of you guys can't make it live just because of the time difference. If you're part of the replay crew, drop a comment underneath in the chat, because the chat is actually only live, works while we're live. That's why you can see it's very busy chat, very lively. So let's make the replay crew, let's make that chatty as well. So drop a comment and feel free to just say whatever you want, nicely. And of course, I will read all of those comments as I will these live comments. Now, I don't get to read all the live comments while it's live. I see some, Bruce alerts me of some. And afterwards, I go through and I read them all, as I will reply to comments underneath. All right, all that out of the way. We're here to have some fun with Photoshop. And don't forget, we've got a brand new moderator this week. And that is the same one from 2 weeks ago. It's Bruce. He was on vacation, and now we have a brand new Bruce. What is it? Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, toes in the sand, drinking a hand, and all he needs is sing it with me if you're a Van Halen fan. All right, so Bruce will take your drink orders, meal orders, get them in quickly, because this is a short flight. We'll be landing in Las Vegas in less than an hour. So anyway, guys, great to have you with us once again. So why don't I go to the screen and stop talking? And, well, actually, I'm going to keep talking, but let's talk to the screen. Good to see you all. And how's the weather there? Let us know in the comments. It's good from there. Rosie from New Zealand, good to see you. Linda, good to see you. Russ is in the house. He's a regular, as is Tracy, and lots of others. Lots of other regulars here. We see Daryl here. We see Ray L. Lots of you guys here. All right, so why don't we kick off with some kind of a Photoshop tip? That'll be kind of fun. So I'm going to click on Open, and I have Bridge running. So why don't we just go to Bridge? That'll be much more quickly. We got this. There's a big surprise coming up for later. So why don't I click on here? And let's get some tips going. What do you guys think? So we've got a new segment coming this week. So I hope you guys are excited for that. Any of you know what it is? Drop a comment and let us know what you think it might be. All right, I'm going to open a couple of these images. This is just going to be just a quick fun thing to do. So, but any of you that didn't know, I actually spent many years actually doing this for a living. I still sort of do. I don't do as much client work as I used to. I still do a little bit. A lot of my time is now with the cafe and also working with DLR. But anyway, this is an album cover, or part of an album cover that I did a few years ago. Scott Grimes, you guys, some of you are familiar with him. So essentially what I did is I created this logo, and I also actually created his real album cover. We're going to combine them. And by the way, for those of you who didn't see how we combine them, we just click and drag up into the tab. Once the tab appears, release, and that's how you combine two images together. So I use different type and stuff like that. The actual final album cover was a little different than this, but what we did do is we put this logo on there. So what if you're doing something like that? You know, if you take photos of something you've drawn on paper, it could be all kinds of things. Splashes of paint that you want to use for overlays. This could be used for design. It could be used for photography, whatever you want. Lots of uses for this, but you've got a white background and you need to get rid of a white background. Now, I cringe when I see people grab the magic wand. Not that I have anything against the tragic wand, but when they click on the key here and then they hit the delete key and Control D to undo it, it's pretty good. But these edges, look at these edges. Oh, we've lost bits. It gets a little hairy. So that's not the way I would do that. So let me just undo that a couple of times. So if you have something like this in a white background and you want to get rid of it, layer blending modes are your friends. So what you want to do is in the layers panel, if you click, in fact, let me just drag it up so you guys can see it easier. Because the blending modes are actually broken into families. They're not just random. Like there's a ton of blend modes, maybe 26. I don't know, I'm guessing. I used to know the number, but it keeps changing. Someone else can count them and let me know how close I was to 26. And drop that in a comment. I'd love to know. So they're broken into different groups. The first one we have is normal and dissolve. And I've heard some people say dissolve is useless. We will come back to that because that's not true at all. I'll give you 2 uses for dissolve. All right, so what we've got is this group here, the darken group. And you can tell it's a darken group because it says darken, and you can tell it's a group because these little lines separate them. So everything in this group, all 5 of these, hide white. Now they interact in different ways and different things happen, but the important thing is they hide white. So we've got darken or multiply. So as you can see, if we choose darken, it's going to darken it. If you want to get a little bit more showing, just choose multiply. And all you got to do is select on there, and white is gone. And now we can move this around wherever we want. We can rescale it, we can resize it. We don't have to worry about cutting it out. And this works great even for embedding PDFs, that have text, black text on white, works a ton of times. So that is a tip. Now let me show you something else. Say it came reversed. By the way, Control-I, Command-I inverted that. And you can see now it's a white logo on black. What if we want to hide the black and show white? Well, we can do that under the blending modes. If you guys remember, the first step was called darken because it started with darken. Let's take a guess. What do you guys think that the second group starts with? And Russ knows, Stuart knows a guy in Whangarei right now who is sailing. That's awesome. I actually went to high school in Whangarei, for you New Zealand guys. Kia ora. So let's go down here, and of course Stuart is one of them. Stuart Braithwaite. All right, so if we go to the lighten mode, what the lighten mode does is it shows lighter things, such as white, and it hides black. So it works in different ways with the different shades. And screen is actually the most accurate way to show white, hide black. So now we can move this around. And if you wanted to hide that, we can do that. In fact, the final logo ended up being something like this. I think I did a duplicate of it with a shadow. Actually, let me just show you. Because, what would happen if you're hiding this and you want to put a drop shadow on there? Well, it's going to show a drop shadow on the edge, right? So what would you do? Well, you just pop it into a smart object, and then we could go in here and see what would happen here. Drop shadow. Oh no, same thing. So what would you do? Well, what you could do, because it's looking at the blend mode, another way you could do this is if you go under the effects, choose blending options, and this is always one people are like, why don't you use blend if? Well, unless you need to apply a drop shadow, you don't need to. But then when we do, here's blend if. We're hiding black. And we can push this all the way up to the edge there. Click OK. Now, if we put this into a smart object and then go to drop shadow, well, look at that. Now the drop shadow is just going to apply. Let's take that distance all the way down. And let's take that size all the way down. So now we can apply that drop shadow right there. You can drag and move this drop shadow onto there without having to cut anything out. So it's a beautiful, non-destructive way of working. All right, let's undo that. So that was just a couple of little tips for you guys right there. So hopefully some of these were useful. Let me know if they were. And if you got any questions about that, drop them in there. All right, so let's have a look at something else. Remember I said we were going to start a new segment this week? So this new segment is karaoke with Colin. No, it's not. You will thank me for that. No, I thought what we'll do is, I don't know, for now I'm going to call it Share My Photo, which is just an awful name. So if you guys have got a better idea, yeah, let's do that. Portfolio hour, whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a couple of images that people have shared this week on our Photoshopcafe group on Facebook. So you could also, let me just bring it up here. You could also, of course, upload it to Twitter or Instagram and just tag us at Photoshopcafe. And I'm just going to look at the tags, the best ones I'm going to share with you. Now, don't upload these to Fix My Photo. Even though you could go to Fix My Photo and you could upload your finished pieces, which I've noticed some people are doing. That's wonderful. But it's not going to be, it's going to get very messy if we do that. So rather than do that, why don't you join our Facebook group? This is our Facebook group here. It's called Photoshopcafe, Photoshop Art, Tutorials, and Challenges. And we have a link. Do you have that link there, Bruce? Would you mind posting it if you have that? Otherwise, I will find it myself because I have the link. But I think Bruce has it. And so what you guys can do is, let me just grab it from here anyway. If you go to Photoshop Cafe, there it is. Bruce got it there. So it's, I don't think it's Facebook. Oh, actually, that's not the group, Bruce. That's our Photoshop Cafe page. But this is the group. Let me just put this link in here quickly. So this is the link for our group. This is our private group. So if you guys want to be part of it, it's free and all that stuff, and you don't get spammed or anything. Just drop it in there, and I will go in and I will approve you guys, and then you can go in and you can post things like Cindy did. I don't know if you were there, Cindy, but Cindy just posted her first post, and then she did a composite based on last week's LFL. So if you're in the house, Cindy Kruger, introduce yourself. And so she did a composite here. Looks like she grabbed the birds. Looks like the same birds from Design Cuts, actually. Looks cool. And so she did this massive castle. Great job. Is that Harry Potter's castle? Maybe. This looks fantastic. Great job. Or maybe that's the actual real one that they did, Cinderella's one. What's it called? The one in Germany? We've got an aqueduct going there. We've got some fun stuff. So thank you for sharing that. So what I'm going to do each week is we're going to go in here and I'm going to pick some of the images that you guys have shared, and I'll share them with you guys. And if you want a critique, I can do a critique. So I'm going to ask you guys 2 questions right now in the chat. Put it into the chat underneath if you're not watching live. If you're watching live, what should we call this segment? Share my photo? But we don't want to just make it photos. We want to share it. There we go. That's it. Tracy said, I can't even say that. Nusha Wanstein. Oh my gosh. The Germans will never let me into the country ever again. So this is, so that's what we're going to do, guys. So go in there. I'm going to find a couple of images from there each week, and we will share them. So what else we got? All right. Let's have a look under the bridge again, and in a minute we're going to jump and do some of my fix my photo. But if you guys want to share some of your images, I'd love to see what you guys are doing, composites or whatever, you know, extra bonus points if it's related to the tutorial or the tips that I show. Obviously that's not going to make sense every time. And of course I had that. Let's go, where do we go here? There we go. All right, let's have a look. So I am going to click, and we're going to open these. So I don't even know how to say this name. Apologies, but I just thought this was a beautiful. Oh, here we go. Anova Pavlova. Anova Pavlova, are you in the house? This is a wonderful. I love this mermaid. Looks beautiful. Great colors and everything like that. Looks wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And what else we got here? So Peter Hingens. This is pretty cool. So what I like about this is, you know, you got the candle burning under here. Of course, the cracks underneath the bottom. Someone made a comment in there and they said, well, the obvious reason is the candle won't burn. But it will, because there's cracks here in the wood, so the air is going to come in and oxygenate this candle. So that looks wonderful. I also like the way he distorted the background behind here, so we can see a little bit of distortion. Nice job. And that might actually go for a tutorial that I did recently where I showed you guys how to extract glass. So thank you for sharing that. Looks great in good colors. Yes. So this one here I thought was really great. This is from Sebastian La Chapelle. Spielberg's Last Supper. So clever. I really like what you've done here. We have Steven Spielberg, and then we have extracts from some of his favorite movies, kind of like The Christ, Last Supper. So it's very clever here. I like what we've done. You know, we've got the dinosaurs here. We've got E.T. We've got, you know, from his famous movies, of course, we've got his Oscar. We've got Jurassic. This is really good. Quite clever, and I like the way he's done the posters on the wall there. Nice work. So that was kind of fun. Great idea. All right. Our creative photos with Colin. Maybe that's a good idea. Yeah, right. So Fran Felice Atkins, are you here? I know you're in here sometimes in the live stream. Miss Debbie's Summer Camp and Watermelon Farm. All right, so we've got a basketball that's a watermelon basketball. We've got people eating watermelons. And we've got kids here on the way to summer camp, of course, with the mascots. Nice work. Summer of 1960. Great job. And that's it. That's all we're going to share this week from whatever we come up with. And then once we come up with a name for this, I will come up with a, some kind of a screen, like a, I don't know, animation screen, whatever. Introduction, I guess is what we call it. So come up with your ideas, guys, and let me know what your ideas are. Now, I'm going to give you another way to share those ideas. Let me just show you here. You can drop them into the comments of this video afterwards if you want. That's one way to do it. The other way, of course, is we have the community section on YouTube. So where's YouTube? Well, you guys are here on YouTube right now. So if you go to the channel, which is Photoshopcafe, here's our live stream right now. And if you go into community, there's a tab here. And, sometimes I do polls and things like that here. So I'm going to post here ideas. You know what? I'll post it later. But jump in here and put your ideas for the names for our new segment. Actually, let's do it now. For the new segment. Ideas for the new segment. Naming ideas. How's that? New. Let's try this again. So only people that you guys will know. New LFL segment. Naming ideas. So pop your names in here, guys, and I'll look for them there as well. So let's find some good names for this. And if this is something you guys want to see, Cafe Crew Cruise, I like that. Cafe Crew Creativity. Hi, Paul. Yeah, let me know. Do you guys like this idea? So, we'll get it going a little bit, easier and better. And of course, this will last for, just 5 minutes. And, we'll keep that going. Now, some people did disobey, and they posted some of theirs under the LFL. Now, don't post these on LFL anymore. I'm not going to share these on LFL anymore. I'm only going to do the ones that you guys want me to fix, because otherwise it's going to become a confusing mess, and we're not going to know what you guys want me to fix and what you want me to share. So I will share this week, just because I didn't say that. So Tom Hackett has a few here. That looks nice. He's polishing that up. And there he is, doing a multiple exposure. Are you in the house there, Tom? Don't post any more now, because I'm not going to be sharing these anymore. And I thought that was kind of clever. A race of flies. Some of them going the wrong way. Or maybe just that one is going the wrong way. It's kind of funny. Typical fly. Of course, they change directions very quickly. Nice work. Magical Mystery Photo Tour. All right, that's a good idea. All right, so these are more, submissions for LFL this week for Fix My Photo. So why don't we just do that, guys? Let's just jump into Fix My Photo. And here we are in Fix My Photo. Why did we go here so quickly? Because we missed it the last couple of weeks. So I thought we'll jump in and we'll do a little bit of this. And, maybe we can mix in some tips and stuff as well. So if you guys want me to fix your photo or do something with your photo, upload it to fixmyphoto.net, and Bruce will drop that link right into the chat right now. So you want your photos in there, upload them, and the rules are, as always, upload a RAW file if you have it, because if it's not a RAW file, it's really hard to do stuff with dynamic range. JPEGs, TIFFs are fine too, just upload them nice and large. Make sure you put your name in the file name so we know whose photo it belongs to, and of course I can give you a shout out, credit, all that fun stuff, and then a maximum of 3 submissions per person per week. Now this is going to be different. If you want to share your portfolio pieces, post them, and don't post 100 of them at once. Just post 1 to 3 inside the Photoshop group each week, and that's on Facebook. And I'll look at those for sharing those. So that's a different thing. This is Fix My Photo, where we look at your photos and we make them look good. Or, I mean, they're probably already good, but we will go through and do fun stuff with them. So let's have a look here. Let's go to the desktop. All right, so it looks like we got a before and an after here from Charles Porter. So it's a Hurricane Ridge. That is a really cool looking BMW bike. I can see it's after. He gave it a nice glow effect. Good job. All right, so what would we do with this? Well, let's have a look at it right now. So clearly, you've already done something fun with it, so why don't we do something else? Cafe Crew Artistry, I like that, Orcapest. That's a good suggestion. So I'm going to hit the Develop module. Now, we are in Lightroom right now. If we were working inside of Photoshop, we would just go Filter, Camera, Raw, and we will have the same settings as we have available here. So let's go. Good to see you, Cornell. I can't find the YouTube community link for Name Ideas. Just go to Photoshop Cafe on YouTube. Go to YouTube, Photoshop Cafe. Make sure you go to the Photoshop Cafe channel. Then at the top here, you'll see a link for community. Drop it in there. If you don't see it, just put it into the chat afterwards too, in the live chat. Not the live chat, but the comment section. So as soon as this is finished, the replay will be live. Drop that comment in there and let us know what you want to do. All right, so we're in the Develop module right now. So why don't we go ahead and do something? It looks like it's properly exposed. I can see, the shadows here are just hitting the blacks. And so what's missing is some of the detail in the midtones here. So the blacks, whites are great. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up some of these. So in order to do that, we're going to take the shadows, open that up a little bit so we can see a little more detail in the motorcycle there. Let's take the highlights and pull those to the left. What it's going to do is give us a little more detail in the mountains in the highlights. So before and after, that's the / key. So dynamic range is good. We haven't changed the blacks or the whites. So we're not brightening or darkening this. All we're doing is revealing detail in the midtones, in the highlights and shadows. And Jason just found the link. Great. So let's move out of Dropbox and let's go back to what we're working on. And you can see I'm literally sucking these in live. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to edit this in Photoshop as a smart object. So we're going to continue and we're going to move in there just because, as you guys are uploading, these are appearing live. I've showed how I've done that before. If you guys want to know how that happens, I can tell you if you don't know. But I think you guys know, right? All right, so here we go. We got this cool looking motorcycle. So what do you think we should do with this? There's a lot of different things we could do here. One of the things we could do, let's go to our layers. I'm just going to pop this onto a new layer and rasterize layer, so it's not a smart object anymore, and this is just going to enable us to do things. I'm curious what would happen if we did a sky replacement. What would it do? I'm just curious, and maybe some of you are. Is this going to do the whole sky? Oh, look at that, just got it at the top. Okay, that's cool. And by the way, if you guys want these skies, I've got these free skies I'll give you. Just head over to photoshopcafe.com/vault. And you can grab those skies. I kind of like that kind of moody sky. That's kind of a fun one. So, that's one way we could go with this. Definitely adds a little drama. The other way, what would happen if we cut out this motorcycle? I'm trying to talk like, is it Tom and Jerry? So let's go under the magical tools, which would be the magic wand, quick selection, or object selection. These are the magic selection tools. I don't know if they're really called that, but sounds good to me. And then you get the option to choose select subject. So if we turn on select subject, it's going to cut out or try and cut out our motorcycle. Not bad. Not bad. Not great either, but let's continue. So what we're going to do is we're going to add to that selection with the quick selection tool. So if I hold down the shift key, I can add to that selection. And if we go over, don't worry about it, we'll come back to that in a little bit. Now here's a tip: if you're using a Wacom pen, what you want to do is under the selection tool, you'll see a drop-down menu. Under the drop-down menu there, that little arrow, we have an option for size. Choose pen pressure. And if you're using a Wacom pen, and that way I can use pen pressure to vary the tolerance that I'm using here. So it just makes it easy for me to change this without having to keep changing the brush size. Let's get all of this. And so what I'm doing is I'm just grabbing the whole thing. And if I've grabbed too much, that's okay. And if I hit the Alt or the Option key, I can take away from the selection. So there we go. Taking away from there right now. Adding. So I'm taking away. It reminds me of the guy at this food place I go to. You know, when they use the spoon to put the food into the portions, he is... You know how you just kind of, you people watch and then you kind of come up with these weird names? I call him Mr. Takeaway. Because when he puts the food in, you know, like normally they spoon it on. This guy's more interested in what he's not putting on the plate because he doesn't want to give you too much meat. So, let's go here. They prefer to give you the filling, you know. So, yeah, it's not the best place to eat. So let's hold down the Alt or the Option key. And I'm taking away from that selection. Taking the meat out of the plate and just giving you filling. Alright, I get these random analogies. Alright, so, you know, essentially, you know, we're just making selections. I can go all day doing it like that. Let's go into our select and mask and see how this is looking. And let's just jiggle the opacity so we can see. Okay, we're getting there. We've got other tools. We can actually use a selection tool here. Watch this. I don't know if you guys knew this. Make it a little bigger. You can actually go in and continue refining these selections when you're in here. I can see that it's working really well right now. Let's go in here and see if it gets it there. Oh, you know what? I need to hit the Alt or the Option key, so I take away. Okay. So we can add or take away from the selection here. That one's getting a little too aggressive. So why don't we use the hair tool? And this will make it a little less aggressive. And also works on soft edges. So see what we're doing here? I'm just going in here. I'm not going to spend all day getting this perfect, but I just want to show you guys. Let's go around the edge here. There we go. It's a little bit better. Oh, let's go around the back. Let's clear some of this up. And a little bit in there. Alright, so we're just cutting out this motorcycle right now. This BMW RS something. I have no idea what it is. I used to ride motorcycles. I haven't ridden motorcycles in years. I live in California. I wouldn't ride a motorcycle in California. The other drivers are just too crazy. Alright, so we're kind of cleaning that up. Now you get some of these edges. Let's just go in here and see if it does that. You can force these to go away by grabbing this tool. Hold down the Alt or the Option key and you can just paint away the areas you definitely don't want. Now we get some of these weird areas. Let's change that to white and see how bad those really are. Okay, so here's a little trick you can do to kind of clean up some of these edges, these hard edges. See how well it works. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to feather it just a smidge, not a lot, just a little bit, and then I can push the contrast up. And see what that will do. It'll clean up these edges. And let's see if we can get them a little better here. Let's see, does that clean them up a little bit? Yeah, it's definitely looking better. And of course, you know, if they don't come out great, you can fix them. Let's go around here. Just using, okay, that looks, rather than struggling with this, I'll show you how to use another tool. So get the areas, you know, the main areas are looking good. These bottoms of the wheels are not looking great. That mirror is looking a little rugged. Let's see if we can make that better. Okay, so now we're going to do output to a new layer for layer mask. So don't worry about those little bits. You just want to get most of the things in there. And then when we go in here with the layer mask, we can just use other tools. So let me show you how we would do this wheel. So grab the elliptical marquee tool. Now, we want to get that and we want to rotate it. Anyone know how to rotate that? What we do is we choose select, and then we can transform selection. And then with the transform selection, now we can rotate our oval selection. So why don't we try and get this to match the wheel. And I'm going to grab there. And let's grab the sides. Now, if you don't want it to move together, just hold the shift key and you can move them one at a time. So I'm just going to line these up with the edges. Now, clearly the angle's now wrong. So let's change the angle. Pull it down a little bit. All right. At some point, this is going to look right. And you just got to tweak it. All you're doing is just gently moving it. Now, another tip is you can use the arrow keys on the keyboard to nudge that. And see how it's almost there? Now, if you want to change the rotation, you can rotate it here, but it, you know, like that's probably a better way to do it. So we can just nudge that rotation and we can get, you know, there. Let's hit enter to apply. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for rock and roll. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to grab a brush and I'm just going to paint in there with white. And that brings back the areas that got over selected. Now, of course, you guys are going to do that perfectly because you're not sitting in front of hundreds of people doing a live presentation. Command Shift I will invert that selection and then we're going to choose black. So now we're selecting outside of that area, and if I just go around that edge of black, you know, we can clean it up this way. Control D turns it off. Is it perfect? No, but it's certainly a lot better than what it was. And let me just quickly do this on the back wheel. Same thing. Let's grab our elliptical marquee tool. Now, if you want to make a perfect circle, hold down the Alt, or well, actually hold down the Shift key, and you'll draw a perfect selection. Now you notice that it goes from the edge. If you want it to go from the center, hold down the Alt or the Option key and notice it goes in the center. Hold down Alt Shift and you'll draw a perfect circle from the center. Now if you don't like it where it is, hold down the space bar. You can move that selection as long as you hold down the space bar. And now we can drag it out. Now I know we don't need a perfect circle because that's not a perfect circle. But why don't we just go to there as a starting place, choose select, and now we're going to grab transform selection. So the quickest way to do this is to hold down shift or actually just turn this chain link off. If we turn that chain link off, now we can move these independently. So I'm just going to go to the edge of the tire. This is the easiest way that I know to line these up because we don't know the angle yet, but I'm just going to find the edges. So let's get a good starting places there. Now we can see, okay, it's over there, it's not there, so now we want to rotate it. So let's go up, grab this little tool here, and now we're going to rotate it until it starts to match. Hit the nudge key, nudging that to the left. All right, we can see we're getting closer. Maybe make that a bit bigger. And so essentially this is what you do. You just use the outside area as a guide. And then at some point, you know, of course you can rotate here too. But the thing about rotating here is you can't really see your selection in real time. Whereas when we go here, notice you can see that more in real time. So that's why I would use that tool. And as I'm rotating, I can find exactly where it should be. Nudge it over a little bit. Well, not quite. Let's go up a bit. And you guys get the script, right? That's exactly what we do. Grab the mask, grab a brush, and we're going to paint with white to create a nice hard edge. I'm getting a little carried away. Command Shift I. We're going to invert that. Paint with black to hide it. So now you guys know how to make selections around circles. I mean, that's really what we wanted to do. That's the whole point of this. But not circles, but ovals, you know, uneven ovals. Control D will turn that off. Now, if you want to, you know, fix up some of these other areas, you know, and that's a nice thing about the mask. If you're using a Wacom pen when you're masking, I advise you to choose the brush settings, and then under those brush settings, turn off transfer, because you probably don't want to be working with semi-transparent. You just want to work with transparent, and also the softness. Hit the brush here, turn hardness up to somewhere between 90 and 100, so you want it pretty hard. And then you can go in here, and these little bits that you missed, you can literally just mask those back in. And, you know, and eventually you'll get a perfect selection. So this is how I would do a selection, you know, on a complex subject such as something like this motorcycle. And then I wanted to do it for print or compositing, and I wanted good quality. I would do this and then just go back and see these little bits you miss. It's so much easier to just kind of get these later on in the mask than it is to try and get everything in the selection the first time. And I'm just going to go over because I'm just going to see where the whole mirror is. Now, let's grab that bit. The part of the fairing is missing in the front. Let's grab that. It's kind of a weird shape. All right, so there's other tools at your disposal. Why don't we use the polygon, not the polygon. Let's use the magnetic lasso and just see how this works. So I'm just going to go here, and what it does is it looks at those edges and it just kind of snaps to them. And you could kind of do that. And that might, well, got a little carried away there. That might kind of help you. This is one way to do it. And if I hit the Alt or the Option key, we can go in there and just kind of clean up that selection. And of course, in the mask here, grab the black brush and just paint it away. That's another way we can do that. So you can kind of do things manually while using these tools to assist you. The other way is we can go to the pen tool. And so we're going to do the pen tool. But why don't we see if this option still exists? Let's have a look. I want to go to the path. And under the pen tool, I'm looking for an option. Does it exist anymore? Let's go under the paths panel. There's our paths. All right. I don't know that they have the magnetic pen tool anymore. Interesting. Okay, so what we're going to do now is with the pen tool, we're going to go in super close. This is another way. Now, this is the most accurate way you can possibly get perfect selections. Like if you want a perfectly clean edge, this is the way to do it. It's a hassle. It's more work. But this will get you the cleanest edge. Now, I know if I go to continue this path, this curve is going to be too wide. I want a lower curve. So I'm going to hold down the Alt or the Option key, and I'm going to pull that little handle in less. Now watch what happens. As I go here, it gives me a tighter curve. See that? And so that's how you can kind of control. Now I want this to go the opposite direction. Alt or Option, change the direction of where I want this to go. And now I can go there. Same thing, Alt or Option here. And let's go all the way around. And now what I want to do is just go here and find the starting point. That closes the curve. Now you can go under the curve and you can use the adjustment tools here to adjust this. Notice only one side is changing. Generally when I grab this, notice both sides change at once. If you hold down the Alt or the Option key, only one side will change at once. And that's how, and why did it do that up here? Because I already had the Alt option. Remember when I changed direction? So Photoshop's kind of smart. It knows what you're trying to do sometimes. I'll definitely put that caveat in there sometimes, because sometimes it has no idea. All right, there we go. And we're just playing around with this. Now, pen tool is one of those tools. There's two tools in Photoshop that you really want to spend time practicing. That's the pen tool and the brush, because both of these require a level of skill. Most of Photoshop doesn't require any skill at all, just knowing which things to use. As far as using the tools, obviously it requires skill in, practice in making the right decisions, using the right colors. But most of the tools are pretty straightforward. These tools, the pen tool is super powerful. Same with the brush, but you got to practice. It might seem impossible at first, but the more you do it, it gets easier, and it will get a lot easier in time. So now I can just go in here and I can just paint that away. And that selection we made with the pen tool, protector, Control D, we get beautiful edges. And see that? See how nice, crisp, and clean? Let's go to 100% view, double click the magnifying glass. And so for those hard edges, those straight edges, these work really, really well. Okay, so let's continue. I'm going to grab the brush and I'm just going to get rid of some of this weirdness over here. So it looks like we are working a lot on Charles Porter's motorcycle. Are you here, Charles, in the house? If you are, reveal yourself. All right, so we're kind of cleaning that up, and more or less, we're cutting out this motorcycle, and there we go. That's becoming a lesson in cutouts today. So let me do a save as, and I'm just going to drop this on the desktop, and we'll call this cutout. Cut it out. All right, so we cut out this motorcycle. So why don't we throw it against a background? Why don't we have a look and see if you guys have submitted something that maybe we can use for the background? Oh, looks like we got some questions here. Jason, what opacity do you want to control, the whole layer or the brushing in? When I adjust that opacity, what I was doing there was adjusting the opacity for the painting, when I'm using the mask. Because when I'm cutting things out, I want that opacity to be at 100%. I want it to be solid. So I'm not semi-selecting it, unless it's a semi-transparent area, like maybe this fairing. Then you can do that at maybe a 50% or something like that. All right, what else have you guys submitted here that maybe we could drop this motorcycle into? Let's have a look. What have we got here? Oh, I'm seeing something here. So, Sandra Orcapest, thank you for submitting this photo. Did we already work on this photo? We did. Okay. So that would work nice, but we've already used it. What do we got? What do we got? Oh, this will be fun. Do we want to drop it on the pier? I don't know. Will that work? Maybe. Let's have a look. Why don't we do this one? So we're going to just adjust it. Let's turn the exposure up just a little bit. Pop in the highlights, the shadows a little bit. And let's open this as a smart object. Yeah, but edit it as a smart object inside of Photoshop. All right. Now we've got that smart object. Looks like one of Tony Mule's pictures. Thank you for submitting that, Tony. All right, let's grab Charles's motorcycle and let's do a collaboration between Tony and Charles. What do you guys think? Will it work? I don't know. It might. So I'm going to hit Control T because obviously this is a little too large. But before I do that, a good habit is to put this into a smart object. Right click, convert to smart object. The reason we're putting this into a smart object is that way when we scale it up or we scale it down, what it's going to do is it's going to preserve our quality. Otherwise, when you change the size, it changes the pixels. Whoops. Why is that going all distorted? I'll tell you why. Because remember I changed the chain length. I can hold the shift key and do it, and that will constrain it, or I can just turn the chain link back on. And now that will constrain our proportions. All right, so I have no idea how large this motorcycle should be. So we're going to make it this big. How big? That big. All right, looks like the light is coming from exactly the opposite direction as always when we do these things. Now, You could flip the motorcycle around, but then all the logos and everything are going to be the wrong way. So we're going to flip the background. Control J will copy it to a new layer. Control T, or another way to do it actually is just to go up under the image menu, and I never use this, but is it under image rotation? And we can flip, that flips the whole canvas, so let's not do that. Let's just do it the fast way. Control T for free transform, right click, and we're going to flip horizontal. Okay, so now we've got the light coming from the right direction. All right, great. I'm just going to contract that a little bit, give it some space to work with. We need to reposition this motorcycle. All right, so now do we have the light coming from a more matching position? We do. So we're just going to have it like sitting right on the edge there. Maybe the motorcycle should be a little smaller. I have no idea how big this pier should be. Let's pop the bike down here. All right, so we've got some more work to do. What we want to do is we want to match the tone, the tonality. So let's choose to change the motorcycle. So with that motorcycle layer selected, we're going to choose, I might have to rasterize it because I believe the adjustments, the match color was not going to work. So let me just Control J, make a copy of it, right click and rasterize it. So now it's pixels because that adjustment would not work on a smart object. And then we need to choose edit. Now, an alternative way of working would be to make the color corrections on the background and keep the bike as it is. And in that way, you wouldn't have to worry about the smart object so much. So let's choose image adjustments. Under adjustments, we're going to go down and we're going to do match color. So for the source, we want to use the right document, and that is, notice here, all of these will match all the tabs that we have open. So we know it's Tony's one, and I see Tony's in the house. Good to see you, Tony. And I'm glad Robin's finding this interesting. All right, so we are working inside this layer here. I mean, inside this document now. But then we need to change the layer. The layer I want to use is the Tony layer. So let's change the layer. Let's grab the copy. And what it's going to do is it's going to grab the color from that background and drop it onto the bike. Obviously, it's too much. So let's take the fade all the way down. So there it is unadjusted. So if we dial it up a little bit, we can start to adjust and dial in some of the tones from that background image. Color intensity. If we go to the left, it's going to reduce it. If we go to the right, it's going to increase the color. So I'm trying to find a nice match between the tones. Looking pretty good. Luminance. Maybe we darken this a little bit. If we lighten it, let's have a look. We're just trying to match it right now. That looks pretty close. Pretty close. But I want to, what I'm going to do is I want to change this to black and white. So I'm going to apply it. And then I'm going to undo it. Control Z will undo it. And then I'm just going to create a, and I'll show you why I do that in a second. So we're going to create a black and white adjustment layer on top. And this is going to enable us to see the tones without the color affecting us. So let's go back here. And now we want to go back to image adjustments to match color. Now, we already chose settings. I want those settings to come back. So I'm going to hold down the Control or Command key, choose match color. And nothing works. I should have done the Alt Option key, I believe. Adjustments. Is it the Alt Option? There we go. Yes. So if I choose the Alt or the Option key, it's going to bring up that last adjustment with the previous settings. So notice it's selected our source and everything. So we've got the same settings we had before. So I didn't have to go through and enter all that again. So Alt or Option key, when you apply an adjustment, will apply it with the previous settings. I don't know if you guys knew that. If that was a new tip for you, do me a favor, hit that like button. We can use more likes. So just do that, guys. And also, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, you might miss some of the videos. And there's a lot of valuable information. So now we kind of know where we were with the color. But the luminance is an area I was struggling with trying to match because the color was distracting me. So let's look at the luminance now. We can kind of match that a little bit better without being distracted by the color. I think that looks better. And now we can hide the black and white, and now we're starting to get a little bit better of a match kind of going on there. All right, so thank you, Dojo. I'm glad you guys like that tip. Definitely a new tip to Tracy. Awesome. Oh my gosh, we taught Tracy something new. All right, we're on a roll today. All right, so one of the things I'm noticing is maybe the contrast is a little bit different between these two. Because the bike itself feels like it's a little more contrasty than the background. So what I could do is just go under it. And why don't we just do Control M for curves. And I'm just going to tweak these a little bit. Let's put a little bit more contrast in that background. What is contrast? Contrast is, where it looks flat or it looks punchy. Is probably the easiest way to describe it. And that background looked more punchy than the bike. Now it looks a little more punchy. Because see that? We applied that curve. Kind of gets it to match a little bit better. Now comes the big thing. Shadows. The wheels are off the ground because there's no shadows. Now we're going to apply some shadow in here. So why don't we do that? We're going to just do the quickest way I know is to apply a drop shadow. So we're going to choose Effects, Drop Shadow. And let's have a look at this drop shadow. What I want to do is match, I'm looking down there, I want to match the brightness and the edge softness. So I'm just zooming in a little bit. I'm hitting the Alt or Option key and scrolling so I can see. So see the shadows that are existing in the photo versus the new shadow. Doesn't match. Let's take the opacity down. Till it matches a little bit better. Okay, it's matching a little bit better now. The softness is close, but let me change that just by adjusting the size a little bit more. There we go. Now it's starting to match a little bit better. And I feel like the color, it's a little warmer color. So click on multiply here on that little box. And then what we're going to do is push it more towards, just a little bit, towards the oranges. So put a little more color there into that shadow. And let's bring the opacity back up to match. And now I think that shadow is looking a little bit more accurate to the shadow already in the photo. See what we're doing? We're not worried about the positioning. All we're worried about is just getting the color and the edge softness. I feel like the edge needs to be a little less. So let's drop this down to about 3. 3 is too much. Let's go to 4. 4 is still too much. Maybe 5. 5 pixels. Yeah, it's almost there. Can we do 4.5? 4.5 looks good to me. Okay, so you can go in there and you can get very kind of... what happened? Wouldn't let me do something. Let's just click OK to apply it. All right, so we've got our shadow. Obviously, the positioning is wrong, but it doesn't matter. What we're going to do now is we're going to right-click on Effects, and then we're going to choose Create Layers, which is here. Click OK. And then what that does is it just creates a separate layer out of our shadow. So now we can move it around. We can worry about positioning. So Yvonne learned something new about the way drop shadows work. I'm glad you did. I'm glad it was useful to you. So now I'm lining it up exactly what's going underneath, and the smart guides will help snap it there. So what we want to do now is we want to cast this shadow. And by the way, guys, if you're learning anything new, hit that like button. Control T will turn on free transform. Now notice we're not working on the motorcycle. We're working on the shadow. Now, Control or Command T is definitely a keyboard shortcut you guys should commit to memory by now. Because if you notice, I use it all the time. T for transform. Apple, you're on Command T. Windows, Control T. You want to use it. And then you can right-click inside that menu and you get all these options. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use Distort. Distort is going to enable me to change everything. Just dragging these edges. All right, so look at the direction the shadows are going here. You want to follow the direction of that shadow. So let's take the top of this, and we're going to take the bottom of that. Now we know that the wheel, the bottom of that wheel is going to match the bottom of that wheel because it's touching. The bottom of the other wheel is going to match because that is touching. So what you want to do is move those points to where they're touching. Don't worry about anything else, just where they're touching. So it's touching, that's touching. Great. Now we want to look at the direction of the shadow. Direction of the shadow is going this way. So let's move these other points like this. And we are going to just drag them down like this. And so this is a very long shadow. It's an interesting kind of a shape for the shadow. And I've gone way too far with that wheel. Let's bring that wheel back. And now we can change it here. And we can sort of start to get the shape of our shadow now, of where we want that to go. So I can drag that out and it's going to stretch it. Let's get that front one down again. Sometimes you got to move these around to get them to, just line up perfectly the way they should. So it looks like we're going to have a kind of a thin shadow that's going to go across there. If you want to make it thicker, just drag that out. See what we're doing? And the other one that will thicken it is this corner. So those two corners are going to thicken that shadow. Let's move it in a little bit. And see what we're doing? We're just kind of lining that up, and I'm going to hit enter, and now we've applied the shadow. Now, there's a couple more things we need to do to this shadow to make it more accurate. Yeah, we could copy the shadow from the original picture. That's another option. Rama. All right, so why don't we go to our layer, and with this layer, we're going to create a layer mask. And what we're going to do with this layer mask is we're going to get those edges. But you know what? We're not going to apply anything to those yet. Because the first thing I want to do now is I want to be able to soften some of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to a smart object. And now with this a smart object, some of these areas are going to be soft and some of these are going to be hard. I'm just going to show you, there's many ways to do this. Many, many ways. I'm going to do the quickest way. We're going to apply a filter. So we're going to choose the filter blur. We're going to grab a Gaussian blur. And I have lots of tutorials on how I do this, doing it other ways. What I'm looking for now is the softest part, which is going to be around here. Because as the shadow gets further away from the object, it gets softer and it gets lighter. Okay, so we're just going to apply that, so it's going to soften it. Now clearly it should be sharp where it's close to these areas on the ground. So let's grab that mask on the smart filter, and then we're going to grab our brush. And that's what I love about these live from lockdowns. We can just take our time and go more depth than I could in a 3-minute Photoshop tutorial. So now with that black, I want to paint in here. But I want to have pen pressure, so we're going to go back to our brush settings. If you're using a Wacom tablet, turn transfer to pen pressure. That means that I can blend that. If you don't have a Wacom tablet, turn your opacity down and just kind of blend it in. And I'm just going to gently paint, and I can see I can make that sharp, just close, and then let it blend away. Same here. Let's get it sharper, closer to the bike or the wheels, and we let it blend as it goes away, and those objects are now going to appear a little bit more realistic in that shadow now. All right, so the next thing we might want to do is let's pop this into, put a layer mask on the whole thing. So we're putting a layer mask on here. And with this layer mask, I want to adjust the opacity a little bit and just kind of fade this, because it's going to be darker where it's closer to the object and a little bit lighter in this middle area here. So with that done, what we're going to do is I'm going to grab a soft edge brush. I want that brush nice and soft. And I don't want to go too far, so let's take our flow down. And I'm just going to paint with a low flow. 13 is too much. Shift 0.5 will give me a 5% flow. And I want to paint with black. And I'm just going to gently paint in here. And what it's going to do, see, it's just going to fade that a little bit. So that shadow is now fading as it gets further away from the object. There we go. And if we've gone too far, double click on here and drop the mask density down. So that fits, so that turns down the amount of the masking. All right, last thing we want to do is we want to cut this out. And if we want to cut that out, what we need to do is create a new layer mask. But can you apply 2 layer masks? Well, sort of. What we're going to do is hit Control G. And that'll put this inside a group. It doesn't change anything or the way it appears, but what it does is now we've got a group, we can apply a second mask. And now that we've got a second mask, we can mask out the areas we want to do. And this is a good time to grab another tool, the Polygonal Lasso tool. The Polygon Lasso tool is polygonal if you live in Utah. Sorry for the joke. All right, so we're going to click here, and we're going to go to there, and we're going to drag that down. And what I'm doing here is I am making a selection around here because this shadow is not going to even show on the ground. It would be a little bit of a shadow maybe over here somewhere, but you're not going to see it because of the angle. So what we want to do is we're just going to inverse the selection. Command-Shift-I. Now we've inverted that selection. How do we know it's inversed? Because the marching ants are going around the edges. We're going to grab a black brush and just turn our fill and opacity and everything up. Just paint away. And now we don't have that going off into the edges and looking weird. All right, so there we go. We've sort of got our bike here. There's a couple of other things we could do. Dodging and burning would definitely give us one more level of realism. But another thing that I sometimes do just to kind of, I don't know, it's a good way of, well, we will do a little dodging and burning. Why not? Alt-Option creates a new layer. I'm going to change the blending mode of this to overlay. Click OK. Now I'm going to bring this down and I'm going to put it just above the bike. I'm going to turn on black and white so we're not being influenced by color. We're only looking at tone. And now I only want to paint onto this bike. So I'm going to hold the Alt or the Option key. But before I do, why don't I duplicate it? And we're going to call this DB for Dodge and Burn. And I am going to put this one, hold down the Alt or Option key, and that will clip it to the motorcycle. So that means if I paint now with white or black, notice it's only going to affect the motorcycle. It's not going to affect our background. So I'm going to do a little bit of shadow. So I'm going to paint with black. Shift-05 will take me down to 5% flow. And what I want to do is just pop a little bit of shadow on the area. Because the shadows, of course, you know, these are different photos. If you're really hardcore in compositing, what you're going to do is shoot these under the same light. But if we're going from 2 different photos, we're going to have to kind of change it a little bit. So our light direction is matching a little bit more. So I'm just painting with the shadow here. Like these wheels are probably going to get a little bit more shadowy. And notice by going into black and white, I can see the tones affecting it. And I'm not really being affected by the color. So gently does it here. Getting a little bit more of that shadow kind of matching now. That shadow under there would probably block that. So we're kind of re-rendering the shadows, so to speak. Maybe that's how they would call it. That sounds good. I like the sound of that. All right, so now we've re-rendered those shadows. We're going to flip this around, and let's do the same thing with the highlights. We're going to pick up a little highlight in the front here. Maybe a little more on the wheel. This handlebar I would do a little bit, maybe. Pick up some of it there, a little bit, just a touch there, a little touch there. Just those edges that would really be receiving a little bit more light. It's in shade, so it's not going to see too much. A little bit here, a little bit there. On the front part, see what we're doing? We're re-rendering these shadows. And let me show you how it's going to work if we turn off the color and we look at this before and after. See how those shadows now are starting to match the scene a lot more? That's the shadows and highlights. Okay, I like what's going on there. Great. So why don't we do the same thing with the background? Let's drag this down to the background. Turn it on. We've got that black and white adjustment layer. Let's grab the brush. Hit the X key. So now I want to darken some of these areas. I'm going to go in here and darken the grounding shadow, which is literally where this is touching. And this is what we call a grounding shadow. And then if we look at this with the black and white before and after, let me show you what that grounding shadow did. See what it's doing? I went a little overboard, but what it's doing is it's adding to that. Okay, now we're on the ground. I should have cleaned that up. This is not going to be perfect clearly. And, you know, we've got our shadow and highlight. Everything's looking good. So now what I'm going to do is just finish this off. Maybe throw a little depth of field blur. So why don't we do that? First thing I want to do is I want to sharpen this because this motorcycle is a little bit sharper than the photo. So let's choose Filter Sharpen. And we're going to apply an Unsharp Mask. Let's get a little bit of a sharpening kind of going on here. Is this going to work? Yeah, that'll work. Take the threshold down. And we're just trying to match that a little bit. Okay, so now I've matched the sharpening a little bit more. And what I want to do now is I want to apply a blur. So let's get some depth of field blur kind of going on here. So we're going to choose Filter. And then we're going to choose the Blur Gallery. So under this Blur Gallery, we're going to go to, let's do Field Blur. So I'm going to drag this off in the distance. And I'm going to create a new point. So I'm just going to click, hold down the Control key, double click. This will take this to 0. And then we got a little bit of blur in the background. If I go around here, you can see how it will rotate around. So we want that blur to kind of just go in the background there. Let's bring it down a little bit so we start to get a little bit coming into some of these pylons. There we go. Now we're throwing that into background a little bit. Click OK. Now we've got a little bit of depth of field blur. We're definitely getting closer to a result. I might apply a little bit in the foreground as well. Why not? Let's choose Filter Blur. Let's go back to our blur gallery. Let's use our field blur once again. And look at this, our settings are still there. How did that happen? Well, quite simple really, because it's a smart filter. And then when you use a smart filter, you don't lose anything. But you know what? I'm going to cancel this. And I'm going to do something a little bit different with this. I'm going to just apply a simple little bit of a blur in the foreground because I just don't want to mess up what we've done. I think it's working quite nicely. So I'm just going to hit Control J, and just to show you another way to do this, rasterize the layer. Then we're going to choose Filter Blur. Now I could have used the Tilt Shift Blur in the blur gallery to do the same thing, but we're going to use the Field Blur here. Control, Command, Click, and then just add it there. And I just want a little bit of blur in that foreground. There we go. It's looking nice. See what we're doing there, guys? Click OK. And now we've got a little bit more blur, so we've got a slice of focus where that is, that bike. And why don't we do something fun with the colors? So let's go over the top here. We're going to just choose a solid color. And, I don't know, let's grab something. Let's go matrixy. We'll add a bright green. We're going to change this to color blend mode. This is a little trick I use a lot in compositing. So we take it all the way in, and we're just going to give it a tiny amount, like 3 or 2. See how we've only given it 2 pixels? But what that does is it just ties all our colors together. And, you know, there we go. So we've done a little composite with our motorcycle. Good to see you guys here. So hopefully you found that fun and exciting. If you don't like that color green, we can double click on the green and we can change it. So we can just dial through here. We can choose a warmer color. We can choose more of a yellow, maybe looks better. Adjust the opacity. But what we're doing essentially is we're tying it together just by putting a little bit of a color cast on everything. You could use gradient adjustments, all kinds of things. But anyway, guys, it looks like we're actually out of time here. So I hope you guys enjoyed what we did today on Fix My Photo. So don't forget, if this is your image, so that would be Charles or Tony, just hit me up. Just go to Photoshopcafe.com, hit me up on contact, give me your email address, and I would be very happy to email you this. And I'll probably share it on our social media. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this, and so either next week or the week after, we're going to be doing our Boris effects, our optics. So that's coming very soon. I'll let you guys know in the newsletter. And by the way, guys, if you're not on that newsletter, just go to Photoshopcafe.com, and then you'll see free tutorials at the top. Click on live streams, and then just go to any of our live streams, and you'll see a box there. Put your email address into that box on the live stream, and then I'll send you an email about 15 minutes before we go live for that reminder. So if you're not on that group, put your email address there. You can join other mailing lists on the site, but if you go to that specific one on the live streams, that is the only email list that I'm actually going to send up for these weekly Live from Lockdowns. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining us all. It's been a wonderful week. I see Cornell's got a question here. In the blur gallery, if you select Control L, you can see a preview of the blur effects. In the blur gallery, if you hit Control L, let's have a look at that. That sounds like a great tip. Let's go into the blur gallery. Let's double click there. Go into the blur gallery, and you are saying Control M from Cornell. Let's have a look. That'd be Command M on Mac. It's not doing anything. Control M. It's not showing on here. Maybe that's a Windows only thing. Yeah. So Control L is not doing anything on here. Control M. Sorry. Control M. Nope. Option M. Nope. It's not working on there. Sorry, guys. But that was definitely worth testing. It's not working on here. But maybe if I go there, click on here, Control M. No, it just brings up curves. All right, sorry guys. Anyway, so thanks for that. By the way, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. You won't miss a video. And until next week, see you at the cafe.